What is up, guys? How we doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Jedi In Exile. Oh my god, Bad Batch, episode 12 of
He's
season
back.
2, The Outpost. Crosshair is back for good. Let's not spoil it. Let's get straight into it. Brian, talk to me about what you thought.
Yeah, well, like you just said, he was Gary Barlow. He's take that. He's back for good.
He is.
So, Crosshair, we knew that he had to come back at some point, right? So we've been saying for ages, like, have they forgotten about Crosshair? Like, what's going on? We knew he was going to be coming up. And literally and we literally just discussed it before starting the filming of this episode, is that this is like the start of his redemption arc. Like, this is Crosshair coming back to the land of like the living, the light side, all of that. So it really struck me as like a Hoth 2.0. We really get into the crossover of obviously the clones are now fully hated. Like, I think what we probably haven't seen is that the Imperial Army has probably gained a lot of new sergeants since being the Empire. Because I feel like the generals and, you know, the people in the military, obviously there's a lot more lower ranks of the military that aren't clones now. It's not just the generals who are non-clones. So these generals from the Clone Wars era who would have served with the clones probably give the clones a lot of respect, I would think. Whereas these kind of new era, and we're not even that far into the Empire's reign yet, but that era now, they clearly detest the clones. And none more so than this absolute effer. Then I don't even know his name. I haven't even bothered to look it up. He's such an absolute W. Like, yeah, I mean, the ending, I actually thought that, spoiler alert, that Crosshair had actually died when the
When
camera
he collapsed again.
Yeah, when he collapsed and the camera like panned into him and the music was going on. I was like, oh my god, they lingered on him for such a long point. The camera did that. I was like, oh my god, he's actually going to have died from this, as he's like realised, not his mistake, but he's kind of realised what's happened. But then of course he wakes up and he's got the doctor in front of him and you're like, oh yes, he's alive. So I'm so excited. We knew that he'd be coming back to the Bad Batch, to Hunter, to Tech, to the guys. We knew he was coming back. They're getting the band back together, everyone.
Getting the band back together.
So what did you think? Go on.
So, I'll be honest, I called the ending and actually it's hilarious. My wife decided to sit down and watch the last kind of 10 minutes of the episode because I was sat in the living room watching it, and she doesn't watch any of this sort of stuff, and I went, he's going to shoot him, and she was like, okay. And then when he did it, I started celebrating, and she was like, I'm so confused as to what is happening right now. So for anybody else kind of watching on,
it was a real FU
mental
moment, wasn't it?
But
it really was. And the guy had it coming to
I
him.
loved this episode because there's been the little kind of niggle at Crosshair and him kind of, there's a few times that we've seen him kind of hesitate and not know what to do, and I think Cody leaving was a big kind of, he really respected Cody, and so for Cody to then essentially go AWOL and desert, I think probably will have been playing on him a little bit. For me though, such a clever episode. Particularly the bit where the guy who he had wounded, the rebel that he had wounded, when they found him dead in the cave, and they were like, why have they left him? And Crosshair's like, oh, he's dead weight. And Mayday's like, oh, remind me not to die on a mission with you.
You know, as soon as he says that, you're like, that mother effer is going to die.
Yeah.
You know that.
But it was the fact that he then went, he knows that Mayday is basically dead, but still makes the effort to...
It's almost for the memory of them, because I think, and I think that ties back to earlier on in the episode. Every clone, they'd kept the helmet and
Mayday
put it in a space. Yeah. So Mayday clearly had a thing of he was still thinking about his brothers and their memory, and I think that obviously seeing the dead rebel as well, the helmet there, and how much he didn't want that, I think that really played into that kind of brotherhood of obviously the clones are all technically brothers, aren't they? So I feel Crosshair was really keen on bringing him back.
This was just, I feel like this is the huge turning point of this series. So my kind of prediction-y I'm going to say prediction, whether or not it actually happens, but my kind of thoughts are maybe that now that Crosshair's trapped on this kind of cloning planet, whether the Bad Batch are going to now come and essentially bust him out. They're going to go and do a mission there, find out that he's there and bust him out, and then that'll be the crew well and truly back. It'll, I think that will be
maybe
huge.
the Imperials are going to use him to lure them in as well, and it could be a case of they want to like ransom them for each other. So we'll give you Omega, or we'll give you Crosshair if you give us Omega.
So it'd be interesting to see how that plays. But I think you're right. Like, not only was this the turning point for the series in regards to this is the huge twist, this is the huge kind of thing that's going to spur it through to the big finale of the season, but also we have hit a very decisive point, like you touched on at the very start, within the Imperial era, where clones are essentially just being left. Like, they are second-class citizens. The
act has been passed now, hasn't it? So we saw the Emperor at the end of, I think, was it 2 episodes ago or 3 episodes ago? He'd played it really smartly, and that this bill, I can't remember the name of it, the long-winded name, but it's passed now. And you saw the clones at the start of the episode. This commander, I think, was saying to the clones, you're going to your new planet or you're going to your new centre. Speak to the Imperial Information Bureau if you've got any problems. So they are just saying to the clones...
Shipping them off.
Shipping them off, saying thank you... they're not even saying thank you very much. They're just saying, see you later.
But then the other thing is the whole, like, this is the big turning point for the armour, which I know... Obviously, it boils down to... It boils down to a lot more than that, though. But this is the very clear line in the sand of, this is no longer the Republic Army. This is now the Imperial Army. And it is...
So their accuracy is slowly going...
Yeah, it's going to decline. It's going to decline. Somebody monitor those KPIs. But... No, I thought this was huge. I think it's huge for the franchise. I think it's huge for the series. And I think it's just huge in kind of setting up and fleshing out that lore that we always talk about, where, we don't really know what happened, and we thought that they did it really well in Andor, the way that they actually kind of showed the political system kind of running in the background. It should have been
more of like the real world practicality of it all. Like, how do they get from point A to point B?
Yeah. So I absolutely loved this episode. Always love to see Crosshair. It's one of those where I hate that I love him. But I love him. And as much as he is brutal and kind of a bit of a douche sometimes, like, he's just so class. He's one of these characters that you have to love.
There's one character who I keep thinking we're going to see, because he's seems like not a favourite of Dave Filoni, but he's been introduced in so many of the series now. And that's Admiral Yularen.
Yeah.
I keep waiting to think, are we going to see him at some point? So clearly he was in Clone Wars, a major part, because he was like Anakin's general, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Then you've got Rebels. Obviously, he was...
he's head of the ISB.
Head of the ISB. He was then in Andor,
yeah,
wasn't he? So we've seen him in so much that Filoni's connected with. And I'm thinking, he's got to be in Bad Batch somewhere. So that's my prediction. He's going to randomly come in.
It'd be interesting to see what happens with that dynamic as well, just purely because...
Because it's like from the past. I imagine Filoni likes pulling things out, doesn't he? Like,
but we know that he kind of... Like, he went through the Clone Wars with a lot of these troopers and surrounded by clones. So it'd be interesting to kind of see whether there's... Because it looks like he was very brutal.
Yeah,
the fact that he then became part of the ISB and all of that kind of stuff.
I happen to say he would fit well in this, I think, because he was a general, actually. And although we didn't see many of the non-clone generals in the Clone Wars, he didn't seem that warm to the clones. There was a few scenes, which I'm trying to think off the top of my head, there was a few scenes where he would almost like roll his eyes or get a bit annoyed that orders weren't being followed, or not that orders weren't being followed, that they weren't being done
the way that he would want
to the way that he would want, or as quickly as he wants them done. And so I always got the impression that he wasn't really a clone lover, and because of his age, I imagine he must have been in... I mean, the Republic didn't have an army, but he must have been in some kind of defence force that he's served before the clones.
Yeah, of course.
So he's probably used to serving with his own battalion or platoon, however he's done it. Like, so yeah, that's my prediction. I think we're going to see Big man Yularen.
Well, you guys heard it here first.
You did.
And if you've enjoyed hearing us chat about that and all that speculation, why not check out some of our other awesome content right here. And other than that, guys, we'll see you all really soon in the next one.
May the Force be with you all.